I never thought that I would enjoy reading. In fact, I was so confident about this aspect of myself that I openly bragged about it with a sense of pride. Because I didn't need books to do well academically. In reality, I did well despite being borderline illiterate. Why read when learning is harder from a book? Stories unspool slower from a book. Current events, well, they aren't even in books. But most importantly, why read when movies exist? Videos exist. The news exists. Between school, work, sleep, how does anybody find the time or the patience to read? Well, like most journeys, this one begins during a time of depression. January 2023. I was struggling emotionally, mentally, and physically. During the previous year, I had so many sleep-deprived days that I eventually fell out of touch with my physical and emotional states. But like the boiling frog, I didn't realize till it was too late. By then, I'd lost roughly 20 pounds, was absolutely miserable and alone. Luckily, I did have one thing going for me. I was fresh out of a relationship that shattered my identity and left me feeling completely empty. Only pros. No cons. But no problem is too difficult if you can see your way out of it. No problem can't be solved if you know who to ask or have a guide. The problem was I didn't have either at the time. I had been out of touch with my state of being for such a long time that I lost the ability to express my feelings and emotions accurately, nor can I trace back to when I started feeling this way. Needless to say, I was starting from rock bottom. Initially, I stuck to my tried and true method for solving all my problems, which was avoiding them at all costs and then doom scrolling YouTube till I found something that kind of fit the box. And when that didn't work, I turned to friends, which, unsurprisingly, also didn't work. So, out of pure desperation, I turned to the last place I thought I'd ever turn to. Books. Deep down, I didn't believe this would cause any major change, but I thought if I committed hard enough, then I might learn a thing or two about myself, and then I could say that I tried everything. So I committed for the next 30 days to sit and read for an hour every single day. And I really struggled at the beginning, but after a while, my mind learned how to shut up and listen.
I started to see what he was talking about. When I focused on the wall, the job felt impossible, never ending. But when I focused on one brick, everything got easy.
Now that I think about it, finishing a book isn't all that difficult when taken step by step. On average, I'm able to read roughly 60 pages per hour, which means in 30 hours, I'd have finished Will, Atomic Habits, Good to Great, Ultra Learning, and The Hero with 1,000 Faces. For reference, in that time, you can finish half of Breaking Bad, apply to 40 jobs, or doom scroll social media for 15 days. It's actually kind of sad how much time I spend on my phone. Growing up, I was kinda socially awkward because I had just returned from studying abroad for 6 months, and in that time completely lost the ability to speak English. So I missed out on a lot of the early development when it came to learning how to read and write and sound out words. That initially wasn't a problem until middle school, when we began to read in front of the entire class. One by one, everyone would take turns reading different passages from the class novel. Their reading sounds so fluent and confident in comparison to mine. I was the kid who would stumble over and mispronounce my words, reread or skip sentences, and struggled the most with pacing. It was so embarrassing. As a result, I've always seen reading as a point of contention, and it was activity that I went to great lengths in avoiding, which only served to exacerbate my inadequacies even further. However, necessity is a great motivator. As hours became days, and days became weeks, I eventually reached my goal of reading for 30 days. It honestly got a lot easier as the days progressed, and by the last week, reading for an hour a day was still long, but totally enjoyable. There were some days that were a lot harder than others, especially when I had a lot of other obligations to attend to, but bit by bit, I somehow managed to finish more books in this month than I had in all the years of school combined. Honestly, that's why I thought my journey would have ended, but life had other plans.
We often seem to dismiss small changes because they don't seem to matter very much in the moment. James Clear.
A habit that I developed as a byproduct of this experiment was reading before going to bed. Initially, I didn't think much of it, but slowly I began to realize just how refreshed and clear-headed I felt when I woke up. Eventually, I decided to continue my reading journey despite finishing the challenge, but to make reading work for my schedule, I resorted to breaking out of my current routine and getting up earlier. Doing it first thing in the morning became the sort of meditative process where I was able to think through and imagine the scenarios as the author let the story unfold. My theories were no longer just trapped inside my head. Instead, they were given this world to roll around in, and when I couldn't figure out a solution myself, the author presented me with one. reading. My mindset didn't suddenly change overnight, but I could see the difference it was making in my ability to relate and connect with others. Which makes sense, because research suggests that hearing or listening to others' personal experiences activates mirror neurons in the brain, which allows you to empathize with the different characters present in the book or novel. Developing the skill really helped with dissipating some of the anxiety I felt when arguing with the people that I am close with. Before reading, I can count on one hand the number of arguments I've had that didn't end catastrophically. But arguing with the people that you love is a natural and healthy process. The whole experience can be made a lot better if you walk away learning something new about your partner or family member. All it takes is being able to understand and empathize with their qualms, and then actively making a change to show that they are heard and appreciated.
Knowledge is only potential power. It becomes power only when and if it is organized into definite plans of action and directed to a definite end.
At around 6 months, I was doing a lot better emotionally, mentally, and physically. By learning about other people's experiences, I'd put my problems into perspective and learned how to deal with them in a healthier manner. However, there was still something that was bothering me. Little frustrations had been building up from the start, but I could never pinpoint what the exact issue was until I looked at my scripts folder. I'd been spending all this time building up my tools and deepening my thoughts, but I was thinking in circles. I couldn't keep all the ideas and questions that had come from each book stored inside my head. What I needed was an external system that allowed me to examine the connections between different lines of reasoning and test their validity to discover their limitations. Months passed, seasons changed, but the problem remained, firmly lodged in my mind every time I turned a page. Until one fateful evening, after a long day of classes, when I realized I'd been going about note-taking wrong this entire time. We are taught in school to take notes on the things we don't want to forget, when in reality we should be using notes to help process the information we're receiving. This opens up our working memory to find the relationship between different topics and discover the holes and discontinuities in our theories rather than memorizing a list of facts. That is what computers are for. The key was discovering a note-taking system that would allow me to quickly search and index my notes when I needed them. The first book that I came across detailing this process was How to Take Smart Notes by Stoic Oregons. Logically, instead of studying for finals, I procrastinated by studying how to study for finals. And then I promptly bombed 3 out of my 4 finals. When I first started this challenge, I thought that I would last a month, find the solutions to my problems, and then move on with my life. Reading to me wasn't that dissimilar to other forms of media consumption, just slower and more deliberate. What I didn't realize was that's what made reading special. Slowing down gave me room to think and deeply engage with the material, changing how I consumed media in general. It was no longer just finding little bits of entertainment. Rather, it became a quest for the truth, a method to understand the people around me better. After 365 days of reading, I finished a total of 14 books and 77 audiobooks, which only 8 had a major impact on my life and how I conduct my day-to-day business. For anyone who is unsure about reading or finds it too difficult and tedious, what I recommend is figuring out why reading is so uncomfortable and focus on making it a little bit more enjoyable. Personally, what I struggled with the most initially was vocabulary, which is why I found reading on a Kindle so helpful, because it made searching up the words frictionless. Remember, building a habit takes time, and you may initially fail a few times before it truly sticks. It took me 3 tries before I finally adopted the habit of reading and subsequently fell in love with it. So don't be afraid to fail. All that matters is you get up and try again.